This roof gave me the biggest headache in the whole process. It was the most expensive part of the whole project, and it was the most complicated part of the whole project. There was so much tension between me and the roofer. Some days I just felt like I wasn't going to make it. The time has come for me to tell you about my roofing process while I was building my dream home in Lusaka, Zambia. It was the most challenging stage by far. The things I learned during this process will help you to do a better job than I did. My name is Bridget Went. Welcome if we've never met, and if you're coming back, then welcome back. I have already shared several videos of how I took my house from foundation to roof level. I concentrated mainly on the foundation and pulling up the walls, and kind of skimmed over the roofing because it felt like it needed a separate video to explain what I went through while roofing my house, my dream home in Lusaka, Zambia. If you haven't yet watched those other videos, you will do well to check them out because I share lots and lots of tips on how you can make your building easier and faster, and also save costs while doing it. So after doing the foundation and raising the walls, it was now time to put the roof together. So the first thing I did is reach out to my network to see if anybody would suggest to me a roofing company or a team of roofers that were willing and able to do my roof. I got several quotations from different roofers, and then I zeroed in on this one group of guys. Once we agreed on the money that I was going to pay them for doing this project, we started looking at different options of roofing material and products. And right from the start, the tension started because the person that did the roof seemed to have their own place where they bought roofing material, and I just had this sense that they were pushing me towards buying from this one company. Now, I'm not sure if they already had an agreement with this company and maybe they were going to get a commission from whatever I bought, but the pressure was on. And being the person that I am, I don't act with pressure. I took a step back and decided to do my own research with the help of my two brothers. We went out there in Lusaka, looked at several products, several qualities, and decided on what I wanted to buy. Originally, I wanted to do the type of roofing that looked like tiles. In fact, I wanted to do actual tiles, and then I kind of settled for the type of corrugated roofing that is layered to look like tiles. They were so expensive, I just couldn't afford it. So it took me time to finally decide what I was going to do. I was able to find a company that had good quality roofing sheets that were in the color red, which is the color that I wanted. Once I decided on the quality of the product that I was going to use, I was ready to now buy the material. So as I told you, there was some tension because I was being pushed towards a certain location where the roofer wanted me to buy, and that place was much more expensive. For the same product, I was able to save a significant amount of money by buying elsewhere. So here is tip number one. When you're looking for your roofing material, do your research. Look at several suppliers and providers. Look at the quality of what they have. I literally had to go touch it myself, bend the roofing sheets to see how far back they'll bend. And then when I made the decision, I knew I had the correct quality. When it comes to roofing, I believe the simpler the better. Now, I went for a hipped roof. Which was actually a little bit more complicated. Maybe if I knew a simpler roof would be cheaper and easier to do, I probably would have gone with a different type of roof. Having said that, I really love the way my roof came out, and I'm glad I chose to go this route. Here is the first mistake I made on construction of this roof. The drawing details of the framing were not detailed enough. It created such a confusing environment for the roofer, and so we had to go back and forth between my husband and the roofer. Looking back, knowing that I was the lead on this project, I would have gone back. I would have taken the time to study this roof myself so that I would understand it enough to know when it was going correctly and when there were mistakes being made. Also, I would have involved an actual engineer to come and set up this roof for me so the quality would not be compromised. Mind you, my husband was here in the US and I was in Zambia by myself. He is a seasoned builder, and so he knew a lot more about this process than I did. So I had to consult him almost every day. This roof gave me the biggest headache in the whole process. It was the most expensive part of the whole project, and it was the most complicated part of the whole project. There was so much tension between me and the roofer. Some days I just felt like I wasn't going to make it. So that is tip number 2. Make sure your drawings are clear. If you need to use an engineer to draw these, to make a clear drawing, then do that. That would be my suggestion. And have the engineer available to guide whoever you've hired to do the roofing. Better yet, if the engineer has a group of people that he already works with, go for that, because it will reduce on the tensions and misunderstandings that are bound to come out of this process. A quick note from the editor, aka the same person who created this video. The point that I've been laboring to explain is that even though the drawing was clear from our end, the interpretation of it by the carpenter was something different. So no matter how much my husband explained what the expectations were, he just went ahead with what he thought was the right way to do it, because apparently that's the only way he knew how to do it. So that was the main reason for the conflict. My husband wanted it done one way, the carpenter only knew one way. So in the end, it turned out good, but that was the point that I was trying to elaborate here. And by the way, I did a video a few weeks ago that has some saving tips on where to buy wood in Lusaka, Zambia. If you haven't watched that video yet, I will link it in the description box below. Check it out, because in there I tell you where you can buy some really good wood for framing. It's extremely important that you use seasoned wood that is completely dry, because if you use wood that's not completely dry, it will look good when they put it up, but after a while it will warp and bend, and you don't want that happening to your roof. Here are some points that you want to insist on. Make sure the house can carry the load. Make sure that the load goes to the ground. Ensure that the roof will be sufficiently tied to the house. Ensure that there is enough bracing. Some roofers will try to skimp on the type of bracing that they use, but that bracing is what brings strength to your roof. So make sure that there is sufficient bracing to all the framing that is done. And as already alluded to, make sure that your wood is treated for termites and other insects. So after we bought all the material, we started working on the framing. And the framing took several days. After we had ironed out our differences, the roofer and these guys were happy to go on with the project. Here in the US, I see construction all the time, and I see them lifting this heavy framing with all kinds of machines. In Zambia, the guys did it by hand. So it's a very tricky situation and nerve-wracking if you're not used to seeing people climb up with such heavy loads on their hands and backs. Once the framing was put together, we went ahead and started putting the iron sheets on my beautiful roof. Again, this was another process that was completely new to me. I needed to watch them every minute, because even though I didn't completely understand what was going on, my husband had prepared me enough to look for any mistakes. I noticed while they were doing the roofing, and of course I would zoom in with my camera to look at everything they were doing, they were not being careful with the way they put in these nails. Sometimes they would just hit anywhere. When somebody hits an iron sheet with a nail in a space where there is no wood framing under it, they just created a hole. So I was able to see that there were several places where there were holes, and I was very concerned about that, because if you leave that, you will have leakages in your house. So I did have them repair some of the places where I knew there were holes, but it was impossible to make sure that the roof was 100% leakage free. Roofing companies generally suggest that you wait a full rainy season in the case of Zambia, so that you can see how your roof is performing. So I did this roof in the dry season. There was no way for me to know if it was waterproof or not. So we had to wait until the next season. And I happened to go back later on during the rainy season, and I noticed that most of the roof was intact except for my master bedroom and another bedroom. So we will have to go back and repair those areas where it's leaking. Roofing contractors tend to do only what they've done in the past, and anything new can bring tremendous amounts of problems. And with a roof, you don't want to have to redo it. Imagine spending $10,000 on the roof and then realizing that the whole thing is warped. You will have to redo it. So take the necessary steps to study the type of roof you want. Look at what the options are for framing. I think the biggest tip I can share with you about this roofing process is you choose a contractor based on what he's already done in the past. Check their work, but also don't try to bring in something too complicated if you haven't seen him or her handle this type of project before. Many people will say, yes, they know how to do what you want, but at the end of the day, most people stick to what they already know and go with the most efficient way of doing it. When it comes to framing, there are several ways of framing your house. Some people use wood, some people use metal. In my opinion, metal seems to be much more durable, but it tends to be much more expensive as well. So if you can afford a metal roof, if you can afford metal framing, definitely look into it. But wood is just as good. If you handle it well, you make sure your wood is straight, you make sure your wood is dry, you make sure you treat your wood. It will hold up for many, many years to come. So after many sleepless nights, many headaches, many prayers, I finally had the roof on my house. Up to today, this part of the project stretched me the most. So I hope everything I've shared with you will help you to make your process much more efficient and much easier. If you've done a recent project or you have a lot of experience in roofing, somebody else who is in the process may find it helpful. Again, we are here to share information, and my goal always when I share these stories and the process of my building project is to encourage other people in the diaspora and within Africa during their building process. It has been my honor and absolute joy to spend this time with you. I hope all this information has been of great help. In the meantime, I wish you God's blessings and see you next time. Bye-bye.